Thank you for joining us on Daily Politics, reaching you live from Trust TV here in Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria's capital. My name is Shafiu Suleiman. I have in the studio Dr. Jeff Chize Ojinika, a former House of Representatives member, joining us for the discussion. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you, and well done, Nigerians.
Yes, I also have Dr. Yunusa Tanko, another prominent personality, a politician, a political activist, some will say, combines politics and activism, the national chairman of the National Conscience Party. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. And Ramadan Kareem to our brothers and sisters in Islam.
Right. Okay, let's go straight into the, let me get by getting a reaction to the decision but this is something that many have been expecting anyway, even though there were, sort of denials in the past, but then he made it official now by declaring to contest for the presidency. Did it come to you as a surprise, or how do you react to it?
Well, I'll first and foremost start by congratulating the Vice President, Professor Osinbajo, for coming out to make a declaration to run. It's in full exercise of his democratic right as a citizen and as a member of a political party, having served as Attorney General in Lagos State for 8 years and serving as a Vice President and a Professor of Law. He is entitled to his democratic right to make himself available.
That's right.
And democracy is all about choice. So what I think he has done is to make the members of his political party have a lot of choice to look at. The greatest word in the world is the word if. The word if, you can use it to make more than 10 million sentences. And that word if is if this, if that, if this, if that. So I'm sure he has just basically come out to increase the number of the word if. If this, if that, if this.
Right.
So, and if you also ask me, I can rightly say that in exercise of his democratic right, he has come out openly to enunciate what he feels informs his aspiration.
Yeah, we'll get to that shortly. Dr. Yunusa Tanko, yes, it's his constitutional right, to contest. He is eminently qualified as a Nigerian, and by extension, someone of his pedigree and so on. So, but there have been issues, concerning the morality, if you like, or otherwise of such a decision. He is certainly, contesting against his benefactor, his mentor, political mentor, and so on. This has been, some concerns from some quarters. But we are in politics, we are in a democracy, everyone is free, to make a choice. How are you looking at that?
Well, while it is constitutionally or is a constitutional right to declare for the post of a president, which of course he has a right to, but for me, I feel there are moral ineptitude and inefficiency that will have made the Vice President not to have declared. And these are my reasons. First of all, it's either we as Nigerians, people take us for a ride, or they look at our ignorance, political ignorance, and then continue to push us to the wall.
How do you mean?
Exactly. Number one, Mr. Vice President declared to run for the office of the president. It may look funny, using the shield of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He stood under the shield of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and declared that he wants to run for the office of the president.
But what is wrong with that?
Fantastically wrong.
How?
Well, because he is using his office as a basis of his office to address the people, not using himself as an individual belonging to a political party. Most of the developed world, even the president himself, even when he wants to go on a rerun, he's not supposed to use the shield of the president. He's supposed to use maybe his own acronym or what he wants to sell to the people. You saw Obama, you saw Angela Merkel, you saw Boris. All while is either they want to use the
Are you contesting the use of the office?
Yes, I'm using number one, I'm using that particular force. Then secondly, Mr. Vice President served with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
He's still serving.
He's still serving. And they are using a joint ticket. And Mr. Vice President said he was going to advance or advance on the gains.
We'll talk about that.
So morally and constitutionally and everything, he has a right to run. But morally, Mr. Vice President do not have that particular right. In fact, it's an insult on the integrity of the Nigerian people for Mr. Vice President to say he wants to run. Yes, I was part of the people that supported him at a particular point in time. But for this, is an unjust. And
are you perhaps expecting him to resign before he declared his ambition to run? Is that what you're saying?
Those are part of the things that are concrete in the new electoral act. Of course, maybe it has a time limit. It has a time limit.
But does it cover the vice president? Anyway, Mr. Jeff, let's get to hear you. He's raising a very fundamental issue. Now, talking about the atmosphere, the environment, the avenue in which he declares as a current vice president running for presidency.
Well, the issue raised by my brother Tanko is an issue that virtually all Nigerians, all political office holders are guilty of. I can say that you see right away from the chancellor to the president, all of them use the paraphernalia of their office to run their political parties and then also run for elections. It's an aberration.
And that is what
it doesn't happen in other climes. You see party meetings taking place in the villa. All those things are not things that are. So he raised a fundamental issue. But outside that, I think that the vice president is exercising his
rights as a citizen.
And based on his personal convictions, he enunciated his views in terms of what informed the basis of his this. Yeah. So and it cannot be the first. In the past,
I was about to talk about precedence.
Yes, in the past we have had stories like in the southeast. We have S.G. Ikoko. He contested against his father Alvan Ikoko and even defeated the father. The father had to later bless him, and he went to to represent her. In the last instance, we had in Kwara State, the Buki had to disagree with the father in terms of who he wanted and not the rest of them. So there could be such disagreements.
Yeah. Even though
because I can tell you, if I were the vice president and in my own conviction, I believe that my benefactor or whoever it might be may not be the best for the country. My love of the country will not allow me to. And if I also feel that I have what it takes, because the problem of this country is something that is heartbreaking. So if he feels that he has a solution, he has a way with that to solve this problem, he has to make himself available to be able to do that.
Right. So some would say perhaps, there was a gap or there was a failure of, attempts to see to the reconciliation or to... There has been a lot of consultations, before his declaration. Some especially looking at the Southwest, is a region that is known for, resolving issues like this. Could it be, seen as a failure on the part of perhaps the elders or the leaders in the Southwest to bring together or to reconcile this?
No, the situation, the reason is basically this. There's no, if you're talking of morality, there is no candidate from Southwest Nigeria that can stand on a moral ground to come to contest for presidency of this country in 2023. The basic reason being that they know the Southwest is fully aware that there is zoning, whether in the APC or in the PDP and all the rest of them. And having the Southwest, having served 8 years as president, 8 years as vice president, does not stand on any moral ground to ask for her. So when you see people, I keep saying it, anybody who comes out today from the southern Nigeria to talk of southern presidency is being hypocritical.
Well, but the issue of zoning is neither here nor there, because even within the political parties, we're beginning to see.
Don't say it's neither here or there. It has been entrenched.
Might not be constitutional.
No, but
it's a gentleman arrangement.
It has been entrenched
and it can be jettisoned at any point in time. There are precedences.
No, there's no political party. It's there in the party constitution.
Depending on the dynamics.
You are bound as party members to obey your party constitution.
Right. Talking about South, yes, some will say these are some of the things that may likely, work against the aspiration, if you like, of the vice president and any other one coming from the Southwest. The issue of, power shift, to the Southeast in particular. That has been the agitation now. But some will say South is South, whether it is Southwest, Southeast, or South-South. So long as you're taking it to the South, anybody can contest and so on and so forth. But he was talking about the fact that they've been on the saddle for this long. Do you see it as something that should be taken seriously?
No, at a point in time, I had come out and make a pronouncement on the issue of not legitimacy, but rather moral suasion, on the fact that for us to unite this country and make it one, considering the level of injustice that has happened to some of our brothers in the Southeast. And I have made pronounced statements, even in Oka, Anambra State, that yes, it is time for us, even when we are thinking about going south, we should think about going to a southeastern president. And I put a caveat on it. And my caveat is that our people in the south need to play politics to show that actually they belong to the larger
political
half.
Inclusion.
Yes, and they belong to the larger half. And then they should be able to reach out to other brothers and all. Their inability to do that will also open doors for their other brothers in the South-South and the Southwest if the pendulum is turning to southern Nigeria, which of course will at least be a face saving for a united Nigeria as it is. For me, for now, where I've been agitating, we've supported a northern candidate at a point in time. But quite honestly, at this point in time, it is very good for us to have a southern president with a strong northern vice president. It will help to bridge in the gap, no matter how you look at it. But here now, if you want to go specific as regard to whether Southwest or we are discussing about the vice president.
And just like I said, perhaps it has to do with the political, arrangement within the political parties.
Yes, which is not
We're beginning to see that, manifesting.
Yes.
The consultations, the alliances.
Even in the APC, they have announced that they have a zoning arrangement. And that zoning arrangement, that the whole positions, this present time that is in the north, should go to the south. And all the positions in the south should go to the... And based on that, they have already started with their national conventions and all whatnot. That was what produced the rotation from the national chairman from south to the north.
Okay.
But why I wanted to mention it with respect to the vice president is that in my mind and my own thinking, the only person from Southwest that will have a slight legitimacy, do you understand, to run for presidency, and we hinge it based on
perhaps religion.
Gentlemen, my fellow countrymen, I have having served you, like as he said, for 8 years as vice president. I've been to all the local governments. I know all the problems, So based on that, he could say, I step forward to make myself available to be used to change this. But outside him, any other person from Southwest who comes to preach issue of political morality is standing already on a very immoral ground.
Well, talking about morality, let's look at, there are many other issues that we need to look at. Now, let's begin to look at the reactions. yes, after a month of, whether he's going to contest or not, he has made it official. And now his benefactor, talking about Sojo Bola Ahmed Tinubu, shortly after his declaration, also assembled some, APC governors, and they had a meeting. Outside the meeting, he was asked, and the reaction, some will say, shows that the battle line perhaps had been drawn. He did say that he doesn't have, a son. So what are you seeing, beginning to manifest in terms of his relationship with his with his political mentor, and of course how that is going to play out in terms of, the unity, especially of the zone. The southwest, in terms of the political strength.
Well, I have rightly said it, and I keep saying it. This is not the time for a Southwest candidate. In fact, I could go extreme to say, based on issues at a time in this country, in the whole country, it was almost like a consensus that the major, because of events of Abiola, they needed to assuage the Southwest. And they had to take the presidency, it was between Obasanjo and Olufalaye. And at the end of the day, head or tail, it was all Southwest affair. So many people are thinking, having, and then this time again, they've had vice president for 8 years. Many people are thinking.
But the question is, do you see a sort of confrontation or sort of division, among the political class, especially the South?
Well, let me tell you the thinking of a whole number of people. Do you understand?
Yes.
When people come out to run election, some of them, not because they want to run to win. Some of them use it as a bargaining chip. Maybe some people will still want to retain their portfolio as ministers. They will come out, make themselves available so that if they some will also want to. And there are also some people, there are so many schools of thought. Some people believe, even if they come out in the public to fight, so many people still believe that
they are united.
Somehow, that they are playing the same game, maybe in different wings, believing that one will say, even if it's not me, that will be okay. Allow me to nominate, or from amongst us, pick anybody, and then head or tail.
It's still back home, yeah.
So that is it. Well, people have their different strategies. So
well, okay, Dr. Nisa, looking at I don't want to use the word cabal now, but the presidency also appeared to be divided. Having two people coming from the same presidency contesting for the same position. President Muhammadu Buhari did say that he doesn't have a candidate, as it were, but then people know he said he has, but then he didn't mention who the candidate
and he won't make it available.
Right. Okay. Now, the vice president has declared. Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi has also declared, and the same presidency. How are you looking at the calculations now? Some say the cabal or the presidency seems to be divided, perhaps along interests. How are you looking at the permutations?
Well, for me, before I go into your question, I wanted to differ a little bit from Jeff's position as regard to the vice president. We are talking about on a moral ground. I said it earlier on, both the president and vice president run a joint ticket. And he is the head of the economic team of Mr. President. Meaning that everything that goes into that particular presidency, good or bad, he inherited some. Whether there was good, whether it's good, he goes with it. Whether it's bad, he goes with it. So when we are talking about the inflation rate from the time in which they took over from 9% to 33%, we're talking about unemployment rate from 33 to 20 something percent. We're talking about debt collection from 12 million
to about
billion
50 or
to
so.
about 50 plus imaginable 6 trillion naira. All of this one is attributed to this particular government. Though some people may argue that Mr. Vice President did extremely well when Mr. President was out. Yes, that is what it's supposed to be. If he performs very well, it goes to the credit of both of them. If he fails, no. So for me, there's a failure on this particular part, and so they cannot, in other way, detach themselves from each other.
On the platform this evening, we have two gentlemen, one in the studio and the other joining us via Skype from Kano. In the studio, we have Professor Kamal Bello, who is a professor of political science from the National Open University of Nigeria. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Iftar Mubarak.
Thank you.
I hope you had a very nice breaking of fast.
Alhamdulillah.
Right. Okay, going to Kano, we'll be joining Mr. Salahuddin Hashim. He is a senior program officer with the Center for Legislative Advocacy, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, that is CISLAC. He's also joining us to discuss this issue. Thank you, Mr. Salahuddin, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
How is Kano under fasting? I hope you had a nice...
when it is fasting, it's very, very, very scanty. And the weather is actually beautiful, so yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, so without wasting much time, I think we would go straight to Kano to get the perspectives of Mr. Salahuddin. What do you make up with this development? Quite a disturbing development in our polity. Before now, religion wasn't, used too prominent, so to speak, or during elections or during electioneering campaigns and so on. We've had even scenarios where, we have same-faith kind of tickets, that is in the Second or Third Republic, where you have a Muslim kind of ticket and nobody raised an eyebrow. But here we are with a polity that is deeply polarized along religious line. How are you looking at this, and what do you think is triggering this at this point?
Thank you very much. I think it would be nice to begin by saying that the vitality of religion to the electoral process is not something that we can actually wish away. Nigeria is a secular state, and we know that. And of course, there are, however, a number of factors that constantly shapes our political process. Religion, unfortunately, is one of such a huge factor. And this is one very fundamental instrument that crept into our political space sometimes around 2011. There are historical perspectives, but of course, even from your introduction, we noticed and realized that it was never an issue. We saw the 1993 election that was widely proclaimed as free and fair across the country. It was a Muslim ticket, and nobody was interested. And that is the typical character of a Nigerian. But we have an elite capture of the society. The elite capture of the society have now decided to latch in on an intrinsic aspect of citizens, something that actually resonates with us. And they have seen it as a very critical tool to use to either divide or bring us together. And it would be good to put on the table that when it comes to the point of sharing loots and sharing corrupt practices and appointments, religion and ethnicity does not play out. But they play this out along the lines of the minds of an average Nigerian. And no wonder there was this saying that religion is an opium of the masses. So which means that it clearly excludes the elites once you want to use it as a tool for division. The politics of religion, or the religion of politics, depending on how you want to put it, has become something that we really need to pay a lot of attention to. The elites have seen it as a key gap that can be used to divide citizens along the lines of their interests. And always remember that the issue of election and politics basically has to do with individual interests. And political sociologists have actually also said very clearly that religion is an essential determinant in our political outcomes. We have begun to see this playing out in the last our two electoral cycles, and that has deeply polarized Nigerians along ethnic and religion lines. This is an unfortunate development within our political space, and I think it is beginning to influence the factors that diminished most of our democratic tenets. And this is diminished because it actually becloud our reasoning. People don't no longer bother about merits. People don't look at issues about specific indicators that should help you to choose or select. But once they sell religious ideologies to us, we begin to buy it, and that has unfortunately made us to select or choose leaders who don't have capacity. The Constitution made it very clear.
Yeah, Mr. Salahuddin, yes, if talking about politicians, some will say, you know, they are a set of people that all that matters to them is winning election. And of course, at a time like this, just like you said, they can take advantage of any fault line, you know, to achieve their objectives. Some of them, you never see them or had them talking about religion until they find themselves in a tight corner, or they realize that this is the only avenue they could, you know, outsmart or upstage, you know, their opponents. But then it becomes disturbing when you begin to hear religious bodies, you know, getting involved, you know, practically in politics. For instance, the setting up of a directorate for religion, for politics and governance by the RCCG, and of course a call by one of the political aspirants, you know, also on an Islamic organization, the Ulama Association now, to also adopt, you know, similar measure. And of course, we're beginning to see also the manifestations of religious impact on certain relationship even between religious bodies and, of course, or religious, the religious leaders and their employers. For instance, what happened in Abuja, you know, where an imam was relieved of his position as a result of his certain, comment that were considered critical to the government. So, didn't you think we're graduating? It's becoming, you know, it's taken a new dimension that something needs to be done urgently to stem the tide.
No, yeah, I agree with you completely. Religion is actually taking the toll of politics. And of course, when you mentioned that politics is beginning to, it is as a result of recent awareness. There is an awareness that is becoming very obvious and glaring after the 2011 general elections, where you see people voting along ethnic and religious lines. And for me, I think it is an issue that is very fundamental. Very fundamental for religious leaders like the Redeemed Christian Church of God, like the Council of Ulamas, like strategic, to also understand that, yes, they have the right to get involved and participate in politics. That is a franchise that we cannot deny them from. But that they should not use the platforms. As individuals, they can go and do that. But that they should not use the platform. And of course, you would notice that even recently, Pastor Tunde Bakari also came out and also spewed some vital operations about the Igbo presidency, and he did that on the altar. And I think it is important to separate the altar from politics. It is important to separate the mosque and the tafsirs and all of those platforms from politics. Politics should be left for individual participation and not mix it with something that resonates so dearly with the people. At the moment you begin to mix it, that is where the challenge really lies. And what that does is that it actually allows us to actually get leaders that are not capacitated. I'll give you a very typical example. challenge with APC and El-Rufai, decided to defy every candidature under the APC and voted PDP. And unfortunately, the capacity of those they voted under the PDP within that space, if you ask me, are not. So the issue of merit actually took the back seat, and people were more committed to actually taking individuals who actually resonate with their faith. And that, for me, is a danger that we need to really deal with.
Not a very dangerous scenario there. Okay, let me get the views of Professor Kamal here in the studio. Salahuddin is talking about the dangers, of getting, or politicizing religion, especially by those who are, to preach the gospel, and of course those who utilize the altar, to begin to preach, some political ideologies or political preferences and so on and so forth. Coming at the time, Nigeria is seen to be deeply polarized. What do you see in terms of the negative impact this will do to our unity as a country?
Thank you very much. The issue of religion in politics is not new in Nigeria. It has antecedents. It has an history. It's a kind of evolution. It's becoming now a kind of monster. It can boomerang. And the genesis of this is that there is a book I wrote, Ideological Bankruptcy in the Political Practices of Nigeria. Genesis, magnitude, and consequences. And I traced from the First Republic, the Second Republic, the Third Republic. It became more prominent in the Third Republic when IBB created SDP and NRC. SDP a little to the left, NRC a little to the right.
That's right.
Because a rightist is capitalism, leftist is socialism. Since we cannot close our eyes as elites and say we are socialists ideologically or capitalists ideologically, we are dilly-dallying a little to the right, a little to the left, which means we are not capitalists, we are not socialists.
But here we're talking about ideology there. You're talking about ideology now, which is political ideology.
I said, I wrote a book called Ideological Bankruptcy in the Political Practices of Nigeria.
How does it connect, to the issue? Because we're talking about religion.
Yes, that's why I'm using that book as an example.
Okay.
I said, where there's no ideology, we are not a socialist, we are not a capitalist. There are two ideologies in the world, political economy ideology. We need to face the reality. Which one are we? Are we a socialist? Are we a capitalist? We cannot pick, we have not picked. Our political economy ideology in the Constitution, we call it mixed economy.
That's right.
A mixture of capitalism and socialism, which means we are hypocrites. We are not here, we are not there.
But we're looking at contemporary dynamics and realities.
That is what we are saying. It's hypocrisy. Are you getting it? Because, was it Frantz Fanon? He said, when there's war or there's disagreement, you must take a position. If you say you are a neutral, he said that you are a coward or you are a betrayer. Nigeria will solve because of our situation. We are either cowards or we are betrayer. We are not capitalists, we are not socialists because of our environment. So if there's lack of ideology, there are two ideologies in the world, politically, economically. It's either capitalist or socialist.
That's right.
We cannot take one. Definitely, what will happen? Tribalism, religion, ethnocentrism will be taken over. It will become our ideology. Are you getting it?
So if I understand your position, it is the lack of ideology, that breeds, this.
Leads to. Lack of ideology led to this, of using religion, using tribe, ethnocentrism, ethnicity, religionism, regionalism, sectionalism. Because Kalman said that religion and tribalism and tribe, they are false consciousness. They are no reality. What is the reality? Is economy. He said the structure is the economy.
Yes, Salahuddin was talking about, capacity, talking about competency, talking about, merit. Those perhaps are the things that we should look forward to.
Remember in the First Republic, people like Awolowo will come out and tell the world that they are socialist. Are you getting it? People like Aminu Kano will tell you that this is the ideology he has. People like Sadona of Sokoto will come out and tell us what the ideology they have. They have ideology, that's what they used to attract the people at that time. It wasn't when Sadona took over government as a premier, introduced what we call northernization. It's an ideology.
The northernization policy.
Northernization policy. When Obasanjo and Muritala came, they introduced what we call indigenization policy. Are you getting it? Those are ideologies. But since the Third Republic, those ideologies have been withered. Are you getting it? And it's not this Third Republic.
But one thing that would, I mean, that is surprising, or you cannot explain, perhaps, is that talking about religion now, for the followers now, who would allow religious bodies or politicians, to buy their conscience along these religious lines. But looking at the scenario and the contemporary realities, you're talking about political economy earlier on.
Yes.
I mean, whatever is happening in the country is not segregating along these lines. If you're talking about poverty, or if you're talking about unemployment or insecurity, it goes across, religions. So, but why is it that, people will be allowed to be used along these lines, especially by politicians?
No, what we are trying to say is that establishes this. I remember when the military took over in 1966, and Gowon became the head of state. The person he picked, who served like a deputy, is Awolowo, and gave him the Minister for Finance, Federal Commissioner for Finance. It's like his deputy. Gowon is a Christian. Awolowo was a Christian. Nobody cares. Are you getting it? Because people have not been using those things to tell us. If a country will be better, it's we the elite that will make it better. We are the one that are fighting the attention of the masses. And the masses are always in majority. The elites are few, the cream like cream. We are the one to make sure to tell them what is exactly happening. We are not telling them exactly what is happening. When Muritala was killed, the head of state then, General Muritala, Obasanjo took over. The second in command, by rank of the military, supposed to be the officer Danjuma, T.Y. Danjuma. But because of religion, they started that, no, there is need for religion balance, which nobody cares for at that time. They now pick the senior Yaradua, who is a lower rank, so that they can be a deputy. So it's a gradual thing.
Yeah, so
it's not happening today. It's gradual. It's a gradual thing.
But
and
it's assuming a very frightening dimension when we begin to see religious organizations, taking towing this line, and of course making it categorical or taking a position with regards to.
I'm sorry. Another thing that make it to be big is this media, the social media. There was nothing like this before. People talk in mosque, abuse government. But it's only you, community.
Within, yes.
We know, we hear. But today somebody will record it. By the time you put it on Facebook or WhatsApp, millions of people are reading it. And people will be thinking that, oh, what this man said can ignite fire all over the world. So the social media is also contributing. Okay. Everybody's a journalist now. You can take your camera, your handset, you can snap anything.
The advent of citizens journalism.
Journalism. You can be in your room and say something, then you will now be sending it out. And people will say, no, Giwa is burning. Kaduna Road is burning. Somebody just said something. It's not investigated.
Thank you very much. You're still with Daily Politics, reaching you live from Trust TV here in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Today, our talking point is addressing Nigeria's security challenges. And I have, experts in the studio, intelligence and security. Together, we'll be looking at the issues. Gentlemen, you're welcome. I have Dr. Sani Aliyu, is an intelligence and security expert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And Malam Jibrin Indachi is the defense editor of the Blueprint newspaper. You're welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Right. So we cannot get tired of talking about security issues in Nigeria because even the authorities are also not resting on their oars. This morning, the president had to convene, the National Security Council meeting. Some say, it is the fourth since the advent of this administration about more than 7 years ago or so. Now, it shows that the challenge is still very much with us, and there's need for all hands on deck to address it. So here we are looking at the security situation. Before you came in, you were slightly behind schedule, but then I was talking about doing a recap, sort of, and then crime mapping the country. Every aspect of the country, every part of the country is undermined by one security challenge or the other. Now, let me start with you by getting your perspective. Why do you think Nigeria is faced with this kind of situation that we find ourselves?
Well, like you said, we can't stop talking. We can't be tired of offering our own, what you call, our own perspective to the discourse. But like I've always said, either on a program with you at different forums, I think we need to recognize one thing, that since the 1990s, and particularly after 9/11, there seems to be a shift from conventional warfare to unconventional warfare, where non-state actors increasingly try to undermine the sovereignty of states around the world. Even the so-called superpower, there is attempt, to undermine them. But there are different strata of how these things happen. The worst is what you call homegrown terrorism or insurgency, which is what we are grappling with. Globally, what we are facing in Nigeria is what one security expert called the age of durable disorder. They are the criminals, the criminal element, terrorists, insurgents, bandits, or whatever. For many, they have no war to win. They know it's difficult for them to take over government or all of that. But one attack, like the example you gave of the rail line, 3 things was achieved with that attack, which is critically fit into the style of terrorists and insurgents all over the world. 1, undermine the sovereignty of state. 2, get global recognition. 3, oil their own engine of what you call
machinery.
Yes, so it's always like that. No matter what government try to do, one attack. So we are in this situation because, 1, we always react to our challenges. That is 1. 2, when attacks happen, and I built the scenario around the Kaduna attack. It's the same with all the issue you and I have discussed at other fora and all of that. It's not about grandstanding. It's not about lamentation. It's what other countries do is to reassess what are the learned lessons. What are we supposed to do differently? Like we gave instance of all of that. So we are in this situation generally because, 1, there are gaps, which you talk about. There are gaps in governance. There are gaps in how even the people perceive the nation, the country, the Nigeria as a country, sense of belonging. There are gaps in the so-called, the new definition of human security, which include health security, food security, transport security, education security, and all manner of security. What is the place? Yes, what is the place of a Nigeria? And we take the instance of Abuja, Kaduna rail. The ordinary people on both sides of this rail line, how do they connect with the rail? Do they see it as big men from Kaduna going to Abuja, from Abuja, elitists? How are they involved in the process of being protecting this national critical infrastructure?
Maybe by way of intelligence gathering and so on. Yes, Dr. Sanali, he talked about something fundamental, the fact that the security dimension is changing, in line with the global dynamics too, the changing, dynamics in the global architecture of security. He talked about transforming from conventional to non-conventional warfare, which is what we're facing today. But then some would say part of the gaps, is the fact that we are yet to also advance or, restructure or rebuild or, retool our own, security architecture, one, even the policies archaic and what have you. Do you see that as a fundamental gap?
Yes, it is a serious gap, a very worrisome one for that matter. In fact, like my co-discussant here said earlier, when we don't learn from our mistakes or happenings, we keep dragging a very long drag. Now, if you look at what happened in 9/11, the American state as a nation actually collapsed, or you could say drafted most of its security arsenals to face the situation at that moment. Thereafter, they went back to their drawing board and came up with what is called Homeland Security. Nigeria, for all intent and purposes, is today, as at today, is the second most terrorized nation in the world. And yet, we do not have one single agency that is mandated or dedicated to counter terrorism. It becomes very difficult for you to profile or to counter terrorism, because if you are looking at the current security formation in the country, there are problem of inter and intra agency corporations. Right. And when you have, for instance, the Kaduna train problem, we learned that the DSS had or got this, procured this.
There was even an accusation, by the Kaduna State governor, who failed, who queried, if you like, the handling of that intelligence.
Now you see, it becomes very difficult for you to lay blame on any of the agency, because there's no specialized agency that is dedicated to handle or to counter terrorism in Nigeria. So
but we have
we
have the civil authority, the police, for instance. Its main function is to guarantee internal security. Is it that we don't have the agency, or the security agency is not capacitated, to handle the challenge?
If you look at the constitutional mandate of the police, they are to maintain peace and internal order. There is no place in their mandate constitutionally that says police should counter terrorism. Anywhere in the world, it is. If you look, the formation of police is a long time formation. That this current situation we are having is just new. It's new to the world social order, terrorism. And so most nations that are grappling with this situation, they have gone back to their drawing board and came up with a specialized counter-terrorism agency that is mandated not only to counter terrorism, but to check all the possible areas or possibilities of transactions that could lead to terrorism.
That's financial intelligence.
Financial funds movement, deploying forensic aspect of security, and other measures, including AI, other technologies, drones, and so on and so forth. Here in this country, which of it have we tried or to put in motion? We don't have any dedicated agency to handle that. One, we don't have the technology. Two, we refuse deliberately to procure even simple cameras. For instance, when you are talking of Nigeria, the train situation, during Jonathan, I remember vividly well, Les Shekau make a pronouncement that they are going to be attacking rails. They must destroy all those rail systems.
Facilities.
Now, when they were issuing or awarding all those contracts, why didn't they build in security aspect of the contract? Now, you see, sometimes in Nigeria we see things the other way around, as if we don't care, or we are not patriotic enough or we don't have any premium placed on the lives of our citizens. We knew that very well that this is possible, but we did not take any action. The minister is finding a way to slide away from the problem. Meanwhile, he is very much aware of this of the threat that Shekau made earlier, and nothing.
Even beyond the Shekau threat, I think there was an attempt, to blow up. It was even carried out actually. It was on a mild side. That it didn't affect.
It was testing the mic, if you like.
Yes. So, but then with all of that, Mr. Malam Jibrin, talking about neglect or negligence, not taking things seriously. He talked about right from the onset, there ought to have been proper plan as to how to secure, the rail lines, against such attacks that are very much possible. And now, with all the threats, with all the rehearsals, so to speak, something serious hasn't been done until the major incidents. And as we speak, lives were lost, properties were lost, and some people are still in the hands of captives.
Yes, but that is even not the issue. The question we should ask ourselves, are we thinking differently from our response to all other security challenges? Those are the first point.
Thinking
there are
differently.
there are a lot of issues that came out from doctors'
submission.
submission and extrapolation on this. He gave instance of homeland security. Americans don't lament. Developed country and other country, when these things happen, there's no blame game. They approach the situation and then they bring everybody on board. Like he said, that led to the establishment of the homeland security. But above all, they were thinking differently. They are think tanks, who say, okay, who are thinking of the threats in the next 20 years? What are the threats? What is America doing to ensure that there's no homegrown terrorism and insurgency? Because that is the worst, what we are confronted with. And he made a point, which is very valid and which we need to take note of. And I've said this, even on this platform before, that if this train were to be running in China, between a major city in China that is as important as Abuja and another city that is as important as Kaduna, will they allow this train to run blind? What the Hausa will say, Macau on Jirigi. Because this train, once it leaves this station, it cannot see even what is happening in Kubwa. Not to say what is happening in Kajuru or up to this state. You go to the station.
With all the threats.
Yes, with all the threats that is there, you go to the station. Nobody knows who is entering the station. No CCTV camera. There is nothing, like he said. There is no the architecture as part of the security. And that is why, even in some of my comments, I said, look, as members and stakeholders, there need to be a whole government approach and a whole people approach. So when it's happened, let's think quickly. Let's not go either to National Assembly or to anywhere to grandstand. Let's come together. For instance, what is the role of the National Assembly? If the minister misses out in ensuring that this train has the needed security architecture as part of it, what is in terms of the oversight function to say, okay, why should this train run? Look, I have said this before.
But in that respect, there has been back and forth or blame game between the minister and even the National Assembly in a way. Because what he said is that there was, a request, a certain amount of money is needed to procure, the necessary intelligence logistics along that rail line. But it was delayed and what have you.
You see, Male Shafiu, you see, when you invited me here, it's less than 1 hour. It's the importance that I place on coming here, including Doctor himself.
That's right.
It's not that we don't have something to do. We are talking about Nigeria here. When you are given responsibility, this is fasting period, you are here, we are here. You see, let's stop giving excuses. And this is what, when a president gives you assignment, do you expect the president and commander-in-chief to follow you as a minister? Do you expect, if we are not a banana republic, let's these people are giving us loan, any country, let's not be treated as if anything goes in this country. Even in other part of African country, from what what is available, facts available to us is that in other part of African country that this same time of project is running, they have different type of coaches and their security architecture around it. The point we are making, we are not here to blame anybody, but we are telling stakeholders, members of National Assembly, executive, to come together once there is any problem, whether an attack like this. What are the learned lessons? Let them there be introspection. What is it that the National Assembly is supposed to do? What is it that the executive is supposed to do?
But Manage Brain, for how long can we continue to do this? For instance, you talked about the need to come together and look at the issues and see where the failures or the gaps are and address them. Immediately after the train attack, the attack on the train, the president summoned the security chiefs and all of that, and they had an intensive meeting, for instance. But that wasn't the first time the president is summoning such a meeting, whenever there is a major security breach, you see that.
Let me come in, please.
Okay.
Before I know Doctor will want to come.
Right,
let me come in.
right.
You see, that is kinetic approach. For us to solve this issue, and I know Doctor is an expert in this area, all over the world. You don't solve issue of terrorism and insurgency with boots on the ground alone. Look at some of the measures that we are talking about. You said there should be air surveillance on the train. How many trains run in a day? How many aircraft, how many fighter jet jet do we have? Do we have the resources to push it? And then you are now even exposing our aircraft to another attack because the criminal, they will think of another way to even bring down our aircraft.
They even have the capacity to do that.
So the point I'm making, when these things happen, let's sit back. Let's see, okay, yes, we have made a mistake by not taking this observation that we have all made, this security apart. Okay, what is the way forward? What is the short time? The short time is to say, okay, let's re-engage the country that supply this train. What is the international best practices? How is it run in their country? What is it that is not in Kaduna station? What is it that is not in Abuja station? What about the other station? What is the involvement of communities? Do they have sense of belonging? How many of them are working in this railway station? You see, I always say this. When we build system, let's not do cut and paste. We are not in China or US. You cannot build a train in Nigeria and you don't take cognizance of the ordinary people, the communities that buy this thing. You bring them in. They naturally become the natural surveillance of the project.
That's right.
But you are building a train station, you say, we are just building, we don't want it to stop, or we don't want any, and there's no way that you got the buying of the people.
In fact, it is even, just like you said, it has turned to an elitist kind of project, because even the common people cannot even fly the train.
So if the train is passing all these villages, it's for the big men. They don't, that is one aspect. Two, from the information available to me, there are reliable sources have said that even some people who try to give information to security agencies were compromised. When they give information about movement of these criminals, the next day somebody tap on their door and say, you have given so and so, and then that may lead to their distance. So finally on this issue, what we need to do as a nation is what other countries are doing. The example given by Doctor. What is the best practice? Comprehensive. One, engagement. Learned lesson. As a result of 9/11, that led to the establishment of homeland security. In this country, you will say that they are learned lesson about management of emergency, coordination, which led to establishment of Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and all of that. So the point Doctor is making, which who says to look at, how do we have a coordinator? For instance, the police, I want to make a point, because there are some police officers that were trained on counter-terrorism during, I think, former IGP Sir Mike Okiro. That's right. Once they come back, they don't stay as a formation. They send them to various
because of the paucity of manpower.
Yeah, it's part of what he said, because there is no coordinating point in that aspect.